The day I came home, everything I'd ever trusted was gone. The safe in my study stood wide open. The shelves were bare. My late wife's wedding ring, the gold bracelet her mother left her, and $190,000 in cash, all vanished. No broken locks, no forced entry. And the only two people who knew the combination were sleeping under my roof. And right then, I heard them laughing. Down the hall, laughing. That was the moment something inside me changed forever. My name is Frank Delaney, 62 years old. And this is the story of how I turned silence into justice. If you're hearing this, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where did you first hear my story? Because I want to know how far the truth has traveled and how it ends for you. When you've lived past 60, you think you've seen the worst life can throw at you. Death, sickness, loneliness, those are predictable storms. But betrayal, that one still cuts in places time can't heal. That morning, the air in my study felt heavy still. I'd just gotten back from a 3-day fishing trip up at Roosevelt Lake. The truck smelled like coffee and sunscreen, the kind of smell that tells you you're home again. The house was quiet, except for the low hum of the refrigerator down the hall and the distant sound of birds outside. I walked into my study, set my thermos down on the desk, and froze. The safe door was open, wide. At first I thought maybe I'd left it that way. Hell, memory slips at my age. But the second I saw the inside, I knew. It was empty. Not just light inside, empty. The shelves that used to hold thick envelopes of cash, the small box with my wife's wedding ring, and the old gold bracelet she'd inherited from her mother, all gone. My fingers brushed the metal interior, cold, smooth. No scratches, no pry marks, no damage at all. Whoever did this, they didn't need to break in. They just turned the dial, same as I always did. 3 people knew the combination. Me, my daughter Hannah, and her husband Ethan. From down the hall I heard laughter, Hannah's voice bright and effortless, Ethan's lower, easygoing rumble. They'd been living here almost a year, just until we get on our feet again, they'd said. I'd believed them. Now I stood there staring into the hollow of the safe, the silence pressing against my chest like a weight. The clock on the wall ticked steadily behind me. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough that the coffee on my desk went cold. Long enough for the morning sun to crawl halfway across the room. I picked up the phone and dialed the Tucson police. My voice came out level, almost detached. I'd like to report a theft, I said. Detective Ramirez arrived within the hour. Mid-40s, sharp, but tired, the kind of man who'd seen too many domestic cases end in silence. He shook my hand, took one look at the safe, and sighed. Clean job, he said, running a gloved finger along the edge. No tool marks, no forced entry. He turned to me. Who has the combination? Just 3 people. Myself, my daughter Hannah, and her husband Ethan Moore. He nodded slowly, jotting notes on his pad. Do you keep it written down? Anywhere? No. Memorized. When's the last time you changed it? About 6 months ago. He gave a low whistle. What's missing? Cash. $190,000. Plus jewelry belonging to my late wife. He looked up from his notepad, sympathy softening his expression. That's a lot of trust to lose, Mr. Delaney. I didn't answer. He examined the rest of the study, took photos, and finally asked the question I'd been expecting. Anyone else been in this room while you were away? No, just Hannah and Ethan. They were house-sitting. Ramirez glanced toward the hallway. You mind if I talk to them? Go ahead, I said, though the words felt like gravel in my mouth. He stepped out and called their names. I stayed where I was, staring at the open safe. A moment later, I heard footsteps and voices. Ethan first. He always came in first. Tall guy, 36. That smooth salesman kind of charm. that wears thin fast when you realize there's nothing behind it. He hovered in the doorway, hands in and out of his pockets, like he couldn't decide where to hide them. "What's going on?" he asked. Before Ramirez could answer, Hannah brushed past him, her perfume cutting through the air, like something too sweet. "Dad, what happened?" She threw her arms around me too quickly, too perfectly. "The safe was cleaned out," I said quietly. Her body stiffened just a fraction. "That's awful. Who would do something like that?" "Good question." Ramirez asked his routine questions, where they'd been, who'd been in the house, any recent visitors. Ethan's answers came out too fast, his tone climbing a notch higher with each sentence. "I've been working late. Home after 10 most nights. Nothing weird, I swear." Hannah played the part of the concerned daughter, to perfection, touching my shoulder, frowning at the detective offering coffee like it mattered. I noticed what she didn't ask. What exactly was taken? Ramirez thanked us and left, promising to keep us updated. I walked him out, shook his hand, and closed the door behind him. The house went quiet again. From the guest wing I heard their voices, low, urgent, muffled. Couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable argument. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and created a new document. Title line, timeline. Last 7 days. 35 years as a financial advisor had taught me something simple. Numbers don't lie. People do. I listed everything I remembered. Thursday, left for trip at dawn. Hannah texted midday. House is fine. Friday, Ethan supposedly worked late. Saturday, neighbors saw lights on in the study around 9 p.m. Sunday, I returned. Found safe open. Patterns started to form, the way they always do, when you know where to look. Sudden spending, mood shifts, their talk of new beginnings. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the desert sun was dropping orange, bleeding into purple across the horizon. Ethan's silver pickup was parked in the driveway, gleaming like a trophy. Hannah was out there too, laughing at something he said, her hand resting on his arm. They looked like a couple who had everything under control. Maybe they did, just known the way they should. Back inside, I poured myself a drink. Not whiskey, just iced tea. Needed my head clear. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves knew what I'd lost. Trust is a fragile currency. Once it's spent, you can't earn it back the same way. I sat down, typed one final line into my notes. Maybe trust has an expiration date. Then I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, and listened to the muffled laughter coming through the wall. 3 days, I told myself. Give them 3 days. Let's see how the numbers behave. And when they slip, because they will, I'll be ready. Cops don't take the grief with them when they leave. They carry out the clipboard, the plastic evidence bag, the polite words. What stays is the air, thick and stale, and the way the house sounds louder once the door clicks shut. After Detective Ramirez left, the 3 of us gathered around my kitchen island, like we always did, me on the stool, with the cracked leather, Hannah moving too fast between the fridge and the sink, Ethan hovering like a guest in a hotel lobby, hands in and out of his pockets. On the counter sat a casserole Hannah had bought from the church bake sale, still in a foil pan. She kept asking if I'd eaten. I kept saying no. Neither of us meant the words we were saying. "You sure there's nothing else missing?" she said finally, her eyes sliding off mine like water off wax. "Just the cash," I said. "And your mother's jewelry." Her jaw flexed a movement, as quick as a blink. Ethan cleared his throat and gave me a look I'd seen on salesmen my whole life, the please like me look. "Frank, man, this is crazy. We'll help you figure it out. You'll forgive me if I don't find that comforting," I said. He tried on a hurt smile, like a suit a size too small. We're family. I let the word sit. Some words are lighter when you're 25. By 62, they weigh what they're worth. We ate in that hushed way people eat, after a funeral forks, making small noises on ceramic plates. Hannah kept her phone face down beside her napkin, though the screen haloed the wood every few minutes, with a text she didn't answer. Ethan drank water, like he was trying to stay sober for a breath test. I said almost nothing. Grief can be a costume if you're not careful. I didn't want to perform it. I just wanted the facts. After they drifted back to the guest wing, I carried my plate to the sink, rinsed it clean, and dried it the way I do. When the house needs order, I can control. Then, I went to my study and opened the laptop. Timeline. Last 7 days. I typed in blocks, not sentences, time stamps, purchases. I remembered where keys had been left, when the front porch camera had picked up motion, and when it hadn't. 35 years of reading statements for clients teaches you the simplest truth in money. It always says what people are afraid to admit. You just have to let it talk. Thursday, I left before sunrise. Hannah had asked if I needed anything from Costco. On my way back, said she could Venmo me later. Friday, there were DoorDash bags in the kitchen, not our usual takeout places. Saturday, the study light was on, when it shouldn't have been, according to the smart bulb app. I never use, but never turned off. Sunday morning, the safe was a hollow drum. I walked the house not like a cop would, but like a man who knew where he left things. The bowl by the door that holds spare change emptied, then refilled. The junk drawer straightened. A person doesn't straighten a junk drawer unless they're hiding something or trying to look helpful. The guest wing dresser top, wiped clean, but an outline of a jewelry box I had never seen in their room left a faint square on the wood where dust hadn't settled back yet. I found small things, because small things are what guilty people forget. In the laundry room, bin was a crumpled paper towel with black smudges, graphite, not dirt. Dial locks coat your fingers when you practice them enough. In the garage, a shoebox under a stack of old Christmas lights held nothing but silica packets and the tiny felt bag my wife's bracelet used to live in the string broken. I sat with that one in my palm till the sting passed. Then I put it back exactly as I found it. Morning slid into afternoon, and out again. Around 5, a soft knock came on the back door. Mr. Patterson stood there with his terrier Daisy, the little thing panting a smile with her tongue out. He's 78, walks the dog twice a day, never misses a sunrise. Evening, Frank, he said. Heard the squad lights earlier? Everything all right? Someone emptied my safe, I said. He pulled back like he'd touched a hot stove. Well, hell. Daisy coughed a tiny dog cough. That's terrible. I don't want to pry, but I saw your son-in-law yesterday, over at Sonoran Auto in Chandler, the Tesla place you know. He was in the glass office with the finance guy for a good while. Looked proud as a peacock. The words landed clean as a hammer. I kept my voice level. That right, yep. Silver, I think? Or gray. New one. I was dropping my Subaru for service. Saw him through the window. Appreciate you telling me, I said. How's Daisy's arthritis? We stood there talking about glucosamine chews, while my insides rearranged themselves into something colder. After supper, I tried to watch a ball game. Couldn't tell you who was playing. The house hummed same as always. The thermostat clicked. The ice maker shuddered once, and from the guest wing low voices. Hannah's turned thin when she was anxious, like it had to pass through a smaller throat. Ethan's got louder when he lied. I could chart their marriage on sound if I had to. I slept poorly and woke early. The desert sky at dawn is a soft, forgiving thing. That morning, it looked like the lid of a box I couldn't open. I made coffee, drank it black, and went out to get the paper I still insist on. The headline was about some city council dust-up. Below it, a glossy insert slid out and flapped against the driveway in the Breeze Sonoran Auto Group spring sales event. A silver Model Y on the front, a smiling couple with shades on. I stood there a minute too long, the paper thinning in my grip. Inside, Hannah was pouring cereal. No makeup, hair in a knot, soft t-shirt with a college logo she never attended. Ethan didn't show. He had a talent for absence when presence would cost him something. "Morning," I said. "Sleep okay?" She nodded, eyes on the bowl. I've had better nights." She glanced at the study door, then away. Are you going to change the combination?" "I already did." Another nod. She chewed, then set the spoon down. "Dad, we were talking last night. Maybe you should think about moving the cash to the bank. Safer, you know." "That's sound advice," I said. I let it hang. Funny how we find wisdom once there's nothing left to protect. Her eyes flicked up, hurt, stitched into the blue there. "You think we thought?" "I didn't say that." She stood, rinsed the bowl, then kissed my cheek, like she used to when she was 10, and needed $20 for a school trip. "I'm heading to Target, then meeting a friend for coffee. You need anything?" "Receipts," I said before I could stop myself. "Bring me your receipts." She squinted, like she didn't hear. Right then forced a smile. "Okay, Dad." After she left, I walked to the guest wing. I don't snoop, I audit. There's a difference. On the counter by the Keurig sat a square of paper with a logo pressed faint into the stock. Most folks toss those glossy business cards after an hour. Salesmen tuck them everywhere. Ethan was not most folks. Sonoran Auto, delivery Friday. Ask for Tyler. The handwriting was a neat, impatient script. Delivery Friday. That was tomorrow. I snapped a photo, put the card back. My phone buzzed. A calendar reminder I'd forgotten I set 2 months ago. Check estate planning docs. I let out a small laugh that didn't have any humor in it. Around noon, Ethan rolled through the kitchen, like he'd owned the deed. "Headed to the office," he said, grabbing a protein shake from the fridge. He didn't look at me. People avoid eyes when they know your eyes can do math. "Busy week?" I asked. "Crazy," he said. "Big project." "What kind?" He blinked, then smiled. "Tech stuff." "You wouldn't care." "I care about the parts that touch my house," I said. That pulled his gaze up just long enough to register the warning. "We're on your side, Frank. You'll forgive me if I don't find that comforting," I said again. And this time, I meant it like a period. He left at a pace too quick to be casual. The door shut harder than it needed to. I stood there listening to the silence echo, counting to 10, the way my wife used to make me do when anger wanted airtime. 10 wasn't enough. I went to 20. In the afternoon, I took out the legal pad I keep for serious things and wrote a different kind of list, not times and dates, but choices and consequences. What I know, what I can prove, what I'm willing to do. I underlined that last one twice. What I know, the safe was opened by someone who knew the combination. What I can prove, not enough for a prosecutor, maybe enough for an auditor. What I'm willing to do, be patient and be thorough. Those two win more wars than rage ever did. Sometime near dusk, I stepped onto the back porch. The desert does this trick at sunset, turns every ordinary thing holy. Even the gravel looks like it's keeping a secret. Across the yard, Hannah sat on the patio chair, her knees pulled up, scrolling her phone. Ethan wasn't around. The porch light threw a yellow circle around her. I remembered her as a kid, in a softball jersey, dust on her cheeks, grinning at me through a missing tooth. Grief is not just for the dead. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded without looking up. Yeah. Target have what you needed. More than I could afford. She said a tiny jokes we used to share. It didn't land. Bring me the receipt. I said softer this time. Please? She glanced over puzzled, then shrugged. Sure. I went back inside and stood in the study doorway. The safe looked smaller now. Or maybe I looked larger. I don't know. I placed my hand on the metal one last time and felt nothing where something used to live. In the morning, I'd drive to Sonoran Auto and ask for Tyler. Not as the angry father, and not as the fool either. As a man who has spent his life listening to numbers tell the truth no one wants to say out loud, I wouldn't accuse. I wouldn't threaten. I'd just ask the kind of questions that make liars run out of breath. And if the answers matched the card on the counter, then I'd know exactly what to do next. The next morning the sun came up white and sharp over Tucson. By 7 the temperature was already climbing. I poured a cup of coffee black and bitter and stared at the reflection in the dark surface, an old man with sleep still on his face and a quiet kind of fury in his chest. At 8:15, I parked outside Sonoran Auto. A wall of glass and chrome all shine and smiles, the kind of place that sells the idea of success as much as the car itself. Inside, the air conditioning hit like a refrigerator door. Salesmen in slim suits floated between desks, eyes trained to catch movement. A young guy with gelled hair and a name tag that said Tyler greeted me before I reached the counter. Morning, sir. Looking for something new. Not for me, I said. I think my son-in-law might have been in earlier this week. Ethan Moore. Tall guy, works in IT. He mentioned this place. Said he was test driving a Model Y. Tyler's smile faltered a notch. Oh, yeah. Ethan. He came in Monday. Did he end up buying? He hesitated. Salespeople never want to give up information. But I wore my best grandfatherly grin. I'm his wife's father, I added. We were going to surprise her with a gift basket for the new car. That did it. Tyler relaxed. Yeah, he picked up a silver Model Y. Paid a pretty solid down payment, 25 grand if I remember right. Cash. Rest financed. Cash. I repeated, letting it sound like I didn't quite believe it. Yep. Said he'd been saving for a while. We get young buyers like that. Sometimes tech folks do well these days. Guess so, I said. I thanked him, shook his hand, and walked out into the heat. The sunlight hit the hood of my truck like a blast furnace. 25,000 in cash, 3 days, after my safe was emptied. That wasn't coincidence. That was confirmation. I drove home, windows down, wind in my ears, so I didn't have to listen to my thoughts. The whole way, I kept repeating numbers under my breath. 25,000 for the car, 180,000 stolen, 165,000 unaccounted for. When I turned onto my street, there it was, parked right in my driveway like an insult, silver paint catching the light, dealer plates still on. I parked across the street and just sat there. Hannah came out with her sunglasses and a phone to her ear, the kind of smile you wear when you think you've outsmarted the world. She pressed a hand against the new car's hood, proud as a child showing off a drawing. Inside, the laughter came again. It was like living next to a radio tuned to a frequency of betrayal. That night, I didn't confront them. I made dinner alone, washed my plate, and then sat in my study with the lights off. I opened a new file on my laptop, labeled it Evidence, and started typing. February 17th, safe emptied. February 20th, Ethan purchased vehicle, $25,000 cash, down payment. Hannah announced new home search targeting Scottsdale. Patterns forming like a map of greed. By midnight, I had 20 pages of notes. I'd built portfolios with less data than this, but I needed confirmation that would hold in daylight. The next morning, I made a call. I hadn't made in years, to Marcus Webb, an old colleague who'd left the financial sector for private legal consulting. Marcus had always been precise, quiet, expensive, and worth it. He answered on the second ring. Frank Delaney. Haven't heard from you since the IRS audit on that Tempe account. I need your kind of expertise, I said. What kind of trouble are you in? Not me, I said. My daughter's husband. I think he stole from me. I don't want police. I want proof. Marcus sighed the way men sigh when they see a long road ahead. Bring me what you've got. By 2 that afternoon, I was sitting in his downtown office blinds, drawn against the desert sun. The walls were lined with books and neatly labeled folders. Marcus looked exactly the same mid-50s salt. At the temples, the patience of a man who reads people the way others read ledgers. I handed him a manila envelope, printouts of my notes, screenshots of bank transactions, and a photo of the Tesla parked in my driveway. He studied each page slowly. You've always been meticulous, he said. This is good, but not enough to make it official. I don't want official, I said. I want understanding. He nodded. You want someone to dig through public records, cross-reference property purchases, see what's in their name, what's not. That can be arranged legally. I'll need a retainer, $3,000. I wrote the check. Give me a week, Marcus said. In the meantime, don't tip them off. Don't change your behavior. Let them think you've accepted it. That was fine by me. Pretending had become second nature. A few days passed. I played my role, quiet, polite, distant. Hannah smiled more. Ethan whistled in the mornings. People only whistle when they think no one can hear their lies echo. 3 nights later, Marcus called. I've got something you should see. Tomorrow morning. His office smelled of coffee and legal paper when I walked in. He had a stack of documents on the desk. Your son-in-law applied for a mortgage last week, he said. North Scottsdale. 4-bedroom house. Down payment $45,000. Declared source savings. I felt my pulse settle, not quicken. The kind of calm that comes when math balances itself out. Where'd the rest go? I asked. Marcus slid another document over. Bank statements. No legitimate deposits matching those amounts, which means either cash under the mattress or cash that wasn't earned legally. He leaned back. You've got suspicion, opportunity, motive. What you don't have is admissible proof. I don't need to put him in jail, I said. I just need to take back what's mine. Marcus smiled faintly. Then you're going to want a different kind of expert. He picked up his phone. I'll set you up with Diana Torres, forensic accountant, ex-IRS. She knows where to look. When people hide money they think no one will find. The next day, I sat across from Diana in a small office above a dentist's practice. She was mid-50s, blunt, the type who made numbers confess. Marcus told me you're a patient man, she said. That's good. You'll need to be. I handed her my notes. She skimmed them once, then opened her laptop. Let's map this, she said. Within minutes, she had a graph on her screen, dates and payments, red lines, connecting transactions like veins. February 17th, she said, cash missing from your safe. February 20th, $25,000 car down payment. February 27th, $45,000 property down payment. 7 days, 70 grand. No income to support it. Classic structuring. Structuring, breaking up cash transactions to avoid IRS reporting thresholds. Common with embezzlers, dealers, or idiots who think the government doesn't notice. Her fingers moved fast, pulling public mortgage data. Everything they bought was under his name only. No joint title with your daughter. That means she's not on the hook legally. I said nothing, just watched the screen fill with color. You want me to make this into a report? She asked. Yes. Full analysis, properly dated, signed. Cost you $1,200. Do it. When I left her office, the Arizona heat hit like punishment. My truck's steering wheel burned my palms. I sat there, engine idling, and stared through the windshield at the road ahead. I had confirmation now, just not closure. Proof enough for conscience, not court. Back home, the Tesla gleamed in the driveway again, its reflection shimmering in the late afternoon sun. Hannah and Ethan were on the patio, glasses raised, music low. I caught a few words as I passed by the open door. Closing date, new furniture, pool maintenance. I poured myself another cup of coffee and went to my study. On my laptop, I added a new section to my document. Phase 1, evidence. Phase 2, strategy. Underneath, I wrote one line. If the law can't touch them, the law will work for me. I leaned back, steepling my fingers. Outside laughter drifted again, light and careless. I'd been underestimated before, but never by blood. That was their first mistake. Patience when you're young feels like inaction. When you're my age, it's a weapon. 3 mornings after Diana handed me her report, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of lukewarm coffee and read every line she'd written. Her summary was clinical, but to me it read like scripture. Conclusion: Ethan Moore obtained at least $70,000 in cash within a 7-day window without a verifiable source of income. Risk indicators: structured cash transactions, high-value purchases inconsistent with declared earnings. Below that, her signature and license number. A document fit for any court if I ever decided to step into one. But I wasn't looking for a courtroom. I was looking for peace and maybe something colder. That afternoon I met Marcus again. His office blinds were half closed against the sun, and dust drifted like snow in the narrow beams of light. He tapped the folder I'd brought. You've got motive, opportunity, and a solid financial trail. But you won't get an arrest, Frank. There's no direct proof, no confession, no video. I know, I said. I don't need the state to punish him. I can do it legally. Marcus leaned back. Go on. I told him what I'd been researching: Arizona's tax lien system. A legal instrument so old and dull, most people never even think about it. But I had, for weeks now. In Arizona, when property owners fall behind on their taxes, the county sells their debt to investors. The investor pays the back taxes and in return owns a lien on the property, an IOU, that accrues 16% annual interest. If the owner doesn't pay up, the lien holder can eventually foreclose. Take the house. Most people buy tax liens to make modest profit. I was going to buy one to make a point. Ethan and Hannah's new house, I said. Can we find out if they've got any outstanding tax debts? Marcus arched an eyebrow, then started typing. He was one of those men who moved like he didn't waste extra motions. After a minute, he turned the screen toward me. There, he said, pointing. County records show a small delinquency, about $8,000 in unpaid taxes, 2024 and 2025. Probably a holdover from escrow or a missed statement. Can anyone buy that lien at auction? Yes. Sometimes directly if the county's sitting on old balances. But why would you, Theo? He stopped mid-sentence, then nodded slowly. You'd buy his debt and legally own the right to collect. Marcus sat back, studying me. Frank, that's cold. It's math, I said. Cold comes from outside the equation. He exhaled through his nose, half a laugh, half respect. You'd need a holding company. Keeps your name out of public record. I can file the paperwork. Do it, I said. What should we call it? Something forgettable. He typed a few lines. Suncrest Holdings LLC. Generic enough, perfect. He nodded. It'll take about a week for the state to process the registration. After that, we can approach the county for the lien. I reached for my checkbook. What's the buy-in? $9,000, give or take. plus legal fees. I wrote the check without hesitation. Marcus looked up at me. You understand this won't happen fast. Arizona requires notice periods, redemption windows, the whole bureaucratic dance. Could take 6 months to a year. I've got time, I said. And patience. He smiled slightly. You always did. I left his office and drove to the foothills, where the desert stretches out in long, pale silence. Pulled over near a lookout point, shut off the engine, and just listened. There's a kind of quiet out there that you can't find anywhere else, only wind and sun, and the ticking of cooling metal. It's the sound of waiting paying off. That evening, I opened my laptop and created a new document titled Operation Ledger. Phase 1, Evidence complete. Phase 2, Acquisition. Initiate Suncrest Holdings, LLC. Phase 3, Tax Lien Purchase, pending county records. Phase 4, Leverage IRS Audit. Anonymous Tip, Form 3949A. Phase 5, Foreclosure and Recovery. Each phase got its own timeline with projected completion dates. I'd built client portfolios with less detail. Then I went to the IRS website. The form number I remembered from Diana's explanation, Form 3949A, Information Referral. Anonymous Submission of Suspected Tax Fraud. I started typing carefully. Taxpayer name Ethan Moore. Address 2108W. Calle Solana, Tucson, AZ. Occupation IT Manager. Description of violation: taxpayer made large cash purchases in February 2026, totaling approximately $70,000 vehicle and real estate down payments. Known salary $68,000 annually. No explanation for cash source. Possible unreported income. At the bottom, there was a field for your name. I left it blank. I reviewed it twice, then clicked Submit. The browser refreshed to a confirmation screen. Thank you for your submission. Reference number 7G04C90214. I copied the number into my notebook, closed the laptop, and poured a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking, not even a little. The first domino had fallen. That night, I sat out on the back porch, under the thin light of the desert moon. Hannah and Ethan's laughter drifted from the guest wing, mixed with the faint clinking of wine glasses. They sounded happy. That was good. Let them feel safe. Let them get comfortable. The higher they built their tower, the harder the fall would feel. People like Ethan believe they can outrun accountability because the law's too slow or too blind. But the law isn't blind, it's just patient. Like me. By the time it turns its head, it's already too late. Inside, I jotted one last note on my operation ledger. Justice is best served when they mistake your silence for surrender. Then, I turned off the light, leaving the house in perfect darkness, every clock in rhythm. Patience wasn't in action. It was the steady hum between beats, the pause before thunder, and I'd just started counting. The first letter from the IRS arrived 12 days later. I wasn't supposed to know that, but Hannah's voice carries through drywall when she's scared. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was in the kitchen brewing coffee when I heard her sharp intake of breath down the hall. The kind of sound people make when they see a snake or a bill they can't pay. Ethan, she said, voice breaking. It's from the IRS, then quieter. What did you do? I didn't move, just stirred my coffee slowly. The spoon clinked against the mug like a metronome. Later that afternoon, they left together, Ethan driving, Hannah in the passenger seat, with her phone clutched like a lifeline. When they came back 2 hours later, neither spoke. Ethan went straight to the guest wing. Hannah went out to the garden and sat there until the sun went down. By Wednesday, Marcus had already heard through his contacts that an audit file had been opened in Ethan's name. Anonymous tip, he said over the phone, voice neutral. IRS is reviewing cash transactions from February. They'll request documentation, If he can't prove where that money came from, he's looking at penalties, back taxes, and probably an amended return from hell. I thanked him and hung up. It was working. The gears were turning. That night, I played the same role I always did, the calm father, the man who refused to let bitterness leak through the cracks. When Hannah came into the kitchen to heat leftovers, I asked her about work. She said she might go part-time to help Ethan with the paperwork thing. Her tone was brittle defensive. "He didn't do anything wrong, Dad," she said. "It's just, the IRS makes mistakes." "I'm sure they do," I said. "But they rarely do twice." She gave me a look, then half confusion, half fear. For a moment I thought she saw through me. Then she dropped her gaze and mumbled something about heading to bed. The next morning Marcus called again. Ethan's already hired a tax attorney. Retainer $5,000. And he's panicking. My contact says he's been calling banks for a short-term personal loan. All declined. "Good," I said quietly. "Careful," Marcus warned. "Men like him don't handle pressure well. They lash out." "I'm counting on it," I said. Over the next few weeks, the pressure built slow and precise, like a tightening wire. Ethan's car disappeared from the driveway some mornings, reappeared late at night. Hannah's smiles came less often, and when they did, they were the kind people wear when they're trying to pretend everything's fine. She stopped talking about the new house, the pool, the furniture. I started noticing the bills piling up. On their side of the counter, IRS correspondence, credit card statements, overdue notices from their mortgage lender. And then one day, something unexpected, a new ultrasound photo held up on the fridge with a magnet, a tiny blur inside a gray haze. Underneath, in Hannah's looping handwriting, "Little miracle coming October." I stared at it for a long time. My throat felt dry. For all his arrogance, Ethan had given me a grandchild. An innocent life, untouched by this web of deceit. For the first time in months, I felt a tremor of doubt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the study staring at my operation file. Phase 2, pressure. The plan was clear. Keep tightening until they cracked. But a child changes the math. Punishment hits harder when it echoes through generations. My late wife, Evelyn, would have told me to forgive. She always believed people learned when they were given grace. But Evelyn was gone, and grace had gotten me robbed. Still, I hesitated. The next morning, I drove to see Helen Price, the retired IRS auditor Marcus had introduced me 2 months ago. She worked from a modest home office, lined with tax code binders and certificates. When I told her everything, she just listened, nodding slowly. "You've built a case stronger than most prosecutors," she said finally. "But you're not a prosecutor, are you?" "No," I said. "Just a man who's tired of watching people take what isn't theirs." "And this baby," she asked, "where does it fit in your equation?" "I don't know." Helen leaned forward, her eyes soft but unwavering. "Justice and vengeance have the same face in the dark. Be sure you know which one's staring back at you." Her words sat heavy all the way home. That evening, Hannah knocked on my study door. She looked pale, eyes puffy. "Dad, can we talk?" I closed my laptop. "Of course." She sat across from me, twisting a tissue between her fingers. "Ethan's been under so much stress. The IRS work, everything. He's trying, but it's like everything's falling apart. Stress has a way of finding people who earned it," I said. She frowned. "You sound like you don't care." "I care more than you think." She looked at me, then really looked. "You think he stole from you, don't you?" I didn't answer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Did he?" I met her eyes. "I think you already know." She stood shaking her head. "You don't understand. He made mistakes, but he loves me. We're going to be a family." When she left the house, felt emptier than ever. That night, I poured myself a drink. Not tea this time, but whiskey. The kind I hadn't touched since Evelyn's funeral. I took one sip, then poured the rest into the sink. I couldn't dull my conscience. I needed it sharp. In my operation ledger, I added a new line under Phase 2 collateral damage, unborn child. Risk acknowledged. Proceed with caution. And then below it, if he chooses to raise a family on stolen money, he'll learn the cost of it. Outside, the desert wind picked up, carrying dust and the faint howl of coyotes. Somewhere down the hall, I heard Hannah crying. Ethan's voice came through next, angry, defensive, cornered. The cracks had started. And once cracks form, they don't close. 3 days later, I woke to shouting. Not the kind of shouting that ends with laughter, the kind that ends with doors slamming. Hannah's voice, higher than usual, tight and trembling. Just tell me the truth. Ethan, I'm not stupid. Then Ethan's hoarse and defensive. You wouldn't understand. I did it for us. The silence that followed was longer than any scream. I stayed in bed listening. An old habit from my years advising clients in crisis. Sometimes silence told you more than words ever could. When the front door finally slammed and tires screeched against the driveway, I got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table like nothing had happened. Half an hour later, Annie appeared. Eyes red, hands shaking. She didn't even try to hide the tears. Dad, she said, I think it's true. I didn't ask what. I just waited. He told me, she whispered. He said he took some of your money, but he was going to pay it back before you even noticed. He said he was investing. But then it got out of control. Investing. That word again, always the excuse of thieves who think cleverness redeems them. Where's he now? I asked. Left. Said he needed to clear his head. He took the car. I nodded slowly. Good. Let him run. Her voice broke. You don't even sound surprised. I'm not. She sat down across from me. How long have you known long enough to understand that knowing and proving are two different things? She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time, not as her father, but as something steadier, colder. Did you do something, she asked, with the IRS or the letters or... I didn't answer. Her eyes filled again. Dad, you can't destroy him. He's the father of my child. He destroyed himself, Hannah. I'm just removing the debris. She stood abruptly, the chair scraping the tile. You sound like you're proud of it. No, I said quietly. Just certain. She left without another word. That afternoon, Marcus called. His tone was businesslike, but beneath it there was something almost like concern. Ethan's tax attorney reached out. He said, they're trying to negotiate a settlement with the IRS. Partial payment. But he doesn't have the funds. Missed 2 mortgage payments too. Which means he's spiraling. You were right. He's overextended. Banks are refusing him. If he doesn't come up with money soon, foreclosure proceedings will trigger automatically. Perfect, I said. Frank, Marcus said, lowering his voice. I've worked with angry men before, but not all of them scare me. You do. Not because of what you're doing, but because you're doing it so calmly. Anger wastes precision, I said. He was silent for a moment. You're aware your daughter's pregnant, right? Yes. And this doesn't give you pause. It gives me clarity, I said. You teach people lessons when they can still feel pain. After that, it's just ruin. He sighed. Then I'll proceed. The lien transfer paperwork will be ready next week. You'll officially own his debt. Good. I hung up and looked out the window. The sky was a hard, colorless blue, the kind Arizona gets right before summer scorches everything alive. By the weekend, Ethan came back. The silver Tesla glided into the driveway like nothing had happened, dust kicking up behind it. I watched from the study window as he stepped out, disheveled, unshaven, smelling of stale beer, even through the open air. He stood there for a while, just staring at the house, hands on his hips, like he didn't recognize it. Then he came inside. I was still at my desk when he appeared at the doorway. "You win," he said. I didn't know we were competing. He laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You always talk like that. Like everything's an equation. Math doesn't lie," I said. He took a step closer. "You think I'm trash, don't you? I think you made choices," I said evenly. "And now you're living with them." He slammed his hand against the doorframe. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to steal from you?" "Yes," I said. "Because you did." His breath came fast. "I was going to pay it back. You don't understand what it's like, trying to build something from nothing." "I built plenty from nothing," I said. "Difference is, I didn't steal the bricks." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then quieter, almost pleading, "Just drop it, please. For Hannah. For the baby." Actions have weight, Ethan. Gravity always wins. His eyes flickered, anger, fear, regret. A storm with no clear direction. Then he left. The front door shut gently this time, but the quiet was worse than the slam. 2 nights later, I heard Hannah crying again. This time muffled deep, the kind that comes from somewhere below the ribs. I didn't go to her. Instead, I opened my operation ledger and checked the boxes one by one. IRS pressure effective. Marital instability increasing. Financial exhaustion imminent. I added a new entry at the bottom. Vice 3 legal claim activation. Initiate Suncrest. Holdings demand letter. Upon confirmed default. Then I closed the file. For the first time since February, I slept through the night. A week later, Marcus called. "Frank," he said, "Ethan just received notice of delinquency. You're now his creditor." The words landed heavy, final, like the thud of a gavel. It was official. On paper, I was no longer his father-in-law. I was his debt collector. And I intended to collect every last cent and every last lesson. The certified letter went out. On June 10th, Marcus sent it himself, tracked, signed, time-stamped. By noon on June 13th, the county record showed receipt delivered and signed for by E. Moore. That was the day the first domino truly fell. I was trimming the small patch of bougainvillea in my backyard when I saw Ethan's car fly up the driveway. He didn't even bother parking straight, just left it half across the sidewalk and stormed toward the house. The front door slammed open hard enough to rattle the glass. He was holding the envelope, creased, crushed finger marks, smudging the county seal. "What the hell is this?" he barked. I wiped my hands on my jeans, unhurried. "Read it, I assume?" "Yeah, I read it." His voice cracked on the edge of rage. "Some company, Suncrest Holdings, says they own my property taxes, and that if I don't pay them 10 grand in 30 days, they can take my house. My house, Frank. You know anything about this?" I met his eyes. A man should always know who owns his debts. His pupils tightened. "Don't screw with me. You did this, you or one of your lawyer friends." "Ethan," I said, calm, quiet, "I haven't stepped foot in your financial affairs since the day you took mine." He froze. His lips parted, but no sound came. That sentence hung there like a knife suspended in air. "Get out," I said finally. He didn't move at first. Then he spat on the tile, actually spat, and stormed out. His footsteps crunched across the gravel as he left. Through the window, I watched the taillights fade down the street. 2 nights later, Hannah came alone. No car engine roaring, no slammed doors, just a knock, soft and uncertain. When I opened the door, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad, she said, he's falling apart. He's drinking again. He got laid off yesterday. The IRS froze his account. And now, this letter. She stopped herself, looked at me carefully. Is it you? She asked. What if it is? Her breath hitched. Why, Dad? Why would you go this far? Because you let him do it, I said. You lived in this house, eating my food, smiling in my face, while the man you loved emptied my safe. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't know. You chose not to know. I interrupted. That's worse. She looked down at her hands. We're having a baby. Do you understand what that means? He's still the father. I can't just let him be destroyed. I didn't answer immediately. The truth is, I did understand. That was the problem. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady. You can love someone and still let them drown, Hannah, especially when they built the lake. She flinched like I'd hit her. You're cruel. No, I said softly. I'm consistent. She turned to leave but stopped in the doorway. If you keep doing this, she said, voice trembling, you'll lose me too. I looked at her, the little girl I used to lift onto my shoulders so she could see fireworks over the lake every 4th of July, and said the only thing that felt honest. I lost you the day you chose him, over right and wrong. For the next week, silence. No calls, no visits, just the desert wind and the sound of cicadas buzzing under the eaves. Marcus kept me updated. IRS finalized their audit. He said over the phone, they hit him with $18,000 in taxes, penalties, and interest. He's maxed his credit cards. The lien letter you sent tipped him over. Any word on their mortgage? I asked. 30 days delinquent. If he misses another, the bank starts foreclosure proceedings too. Double pressure, I said. Perfect. Marcus sighed. You're dismantling him piece by piece, Frank. You sure there's a line you won't cross? I'm not burning his life, I said. I'm letting gravity do it. A week later, just past midnight, headlights flooded my window. I stayed still, hand on the armrest of my chair, as footsteps stumbled up the porch. Then bang, bang, bang. The front door shook under his fists. Frank Ethan shouted, You coward! Open the damn door. I didn't. Fine, he yelled. You want this. You want me gone. You'll get it. You think you're better than me, but you're just an old man who hides behind lawyers and paperwork. He kicked the door once more, then stormed off. Tires squealed. The next morning I found a dent in the frame, but no real damage. A coward's mark. 2 days later, Hannah called. Dad, she said quietly, he left. Where, I don't know. He took the car and half the cash from the joint account. He said he'd find money, fix everything. And you believe him? She didn't answer, just whispered, I'm scared. You'll be all right, I said. You're strong. You get that from your mother. There was a pause. Then her voice cracked. I wish Mom were here. She'd tell you to stop. She's not here, I said. And I'm not stopping. That night, Marcus called. Ethan sold the Tesla to a dealer. Quick sale. $38,000, but he still owes $45,000. Underwater. Desperate men make bad math, I said. You're enjoying this. No, I said. But I am watching justice catch up. That's something. A week later, Hannah came again. She looked smaller. Somehow. Thinner. Quieter. Dad, she said, voice trembling. I can't keep paying. Mortgage, IRS, this lien. It's too much. We're drowning. I nodded. Then stop swimming with him. She sank into the couch. He called me last night. Said he's going to fix it all. He sounded wrong. How wrong? Like he'd already given up. I looked away. The desert dusk painted the window orange and gold. Sometimes losing everything is what it takes to see yourself clearly, I said. She pressed her hands to her face. I'm due in 4 months. I don't even know where we'll be living. I wanted to reach for her, to say something fatherly, human. but my hand stayed still. "Dad," she whispered, "if something happens to him, will you ever forgive yourself?" I met her eyes. "If something happens to him, it won't be my doing. It'll be his choices catching up." She didn't argue. She just nodded once, like she finally understood that the father she'd come to plead with wasn't the same man who used to tuck her in at night. When she left, I went to my study and opened the operation ledger. Under Phase 3, I typed a new entry: June 13th. Demand letter received. No payment made. Default expected July the 10th. Collateral damage escalating emotional distress. Hannah, note unavoidable. Then I added a line beneath it. Once you start the wheel of justice, you can't ask it to slow down for love. I closed the folder. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far beyond the mountains. A storm was coming. And I'd built it. The rain came hard that night, rare for Arizona in July. Lightning split the sky open, like the world itself wanted to testify. And in that electric silence between thunder and rain, someone banged on my door. Not a knock, a pounding. I knew it was Ethan before I even looked. When I opened the door, he stood there, soaked hair plastered to his forehead, eyes red and wild. The man who'd strutted into my house a year ago, bragging about new cars and promotions, was gone. What stood in his place was a ruin wearing the same face. "You did this," he said. His voice shook, not from fear but from something worse, hopelessness. I didn't answer. He stepped closer, rainwater dripping off his jacket. "You bought my debt. You called the IRS. You've been behind every damn thing that's happened to us." "Behind," I said quietly. "No, Ethan. I'm just in front now." He flinched, then laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You think this is justice? You think you're some kind of hero?" "No," I said. "Heroes save people. I'm teaching one a lesson." He took another step, fists tightening. "You want your money? Fine, I'll get it. I'll sell everything. Just call off this foreclosure crap." "It's not crap, Ethan. It's consequence. You'll destroy Hannah too. Hannah chose her own road the moment she lied for you." He was breathing hard now, shaking his head like he was trying to erase the truth. "She's pregnant, Frank. Did you know that you're ruining your grandchild's life before it even starts?" I looked at him, this desperate, drenched shadow of a man, and for a brief second, I saw the boy I might have once taken fishing. A kid who might have learned right from wrong if someone had bothered to teach him earlier. "I know," I said. "That's what makes this justice. You'll spend the rest of your life explaining to that child why you lost everything." He lunged forward, not quite an attack, more of a collapse that happened to move toward me. I didn't flinch. He stopped an inch from my face, breathing like an animal cornered. "You think I won't fight back?" he hissed. "I think you already lost." The words hit harder than any punch could have. He stepped back slowly, eyes burning, then turned and staggered into the rain. The sound of his car starting was swallowed by thunder. The next morning, I found the letter taped to my door, a soggy mess of paper and ink. His handwriting all jagged and uneven. "You took everything. Don't pretend you're better than me. You're just as broken. You just hide it behind paperwork." I folded it neatly and placed it in my file. Evidence in its own way. Marcus called that afternoon. Ethan's attorney reached out again. He's trying to negotiate a settlement. He can't pay the full amount, but he's offering to transfer the house deed voluntarily if you forgive the lien. I almost laughed. "He wants to give me the house to stop me from taking it?" Marcus hesitated. "He's desperate, Frank. He's circling the drain. I'm not sure he's sleeping. His wife's halfway through her pregnancy, and the stress is—" "Don't finish that," I said. "You think guilt will make me soft." "No," Marcus said. "I think grief already made you hard." That one landed. After he hung up, I sat in my study staring at the framed photo of Evelyn on the shelf, taken the year before cancer took her. Her smile was the quiet kind, the kind that told you she'd forgiven more in life than she should have. "What would you do?" I whispered. The photo didn't answer, but I already knew what she would have said. "Don't become what hurt you." Too late. A week later, Hannah came again, this time without knocking. She looked exhausted. Her belly showed now small but certain. The sight hit me in a place I thought I'd sealed off years ago. "I'm moving out," she said, voice flat. "We can't stay here. Ethan's losing it. He blames you for everything." "Blames me?" I asked. "He stole from me." "I know," she whispered. "He admits it now. But he says you took more than money, you took his dignity." "Dignity isn't something anyone can steal, Hannah. You give it away." She closed her eyes. "He's not eating. He barely sleeps. He keeps talking about how he's trapped. Last night he said he wished he'd never met me." The silence that followed felt endless. "You think I should stop?" I asked finally. She didn't answer directly. "You think you're teaching him a lesson, but all you're teaching me is how to hate." That one hurt. After she left, I sat in the dark for a long time. The storm had passed, but the smell of wet earth still clung to the air. I poured myself another coffee I didn't drink and stared at my ledger. Every phase complete, every step planned, every emotion accounted for except this one. For the first time, I wondered if justice still looked the same from where I stood. But by morning the doubt had hardened again. Marcus called early. "The redemption period's over. He didn't pay. Legally, you can file for foreclosure now." I looked out the window. Sunlight cut through the blinds, thin and sharp. "Do it," I said. "Frank, file the paperwork. Today." He sighed. "You understand, once I do, there's no going back." I never planned to go back. That night, thunder rolled again in the distance, softer this time, more like memory than threat. I sat in my chair listening to the house creak with the wind and whispered to the empty room. They wanted to take my future. Now, I'm taking theirs. I closed my eyes and let the storm swallow the silence. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Air conditioning blasting against the desert heat, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the sound of bureaucracy doing its quiet, merciless work. Marcus was already there when I arrived. Navy suit, calm demeanor. A folder tucked under his arm, labeled Suncrest Holdings, Browse Ethan Moore. He stood when he saw me. "You don't have to stay for the hearing," he said. "It's procedural. Just a formality before the foreclosure sale." "I'll stay," I said. "I want to hear it." He nodded, but there was something in his eyes, not approval, not judgment, something closer to fatigue. Maybe he was tired of watching men like me try to turn pain into law. The clerk called the case. Ethan wasn't there. His attorney, a young man who looked too polished for this kind of mess, stood alone at the respondent's table. "Your client has failed to satisfy the debt," the judge said, matter of fact. "Lionholder has provided sufficient documentation. Property will proceed to auction on August 26th. Bang of the gavel. 10 seconds of sound that ended a year of deceit. Afterward, Marcus gathered the paperwork and handed me the copy. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "You just won." "Won," I repeated. The word tasted metallic. That evening I drove to 1849 in Pinebrook, their house, or what was left of it. The curtains were drawn, the grass uncut. The for sale sign had been torn out of the yard and lay crooked in the gravel. I parked across the street and watched the windows. After a few minutes, the door opened. Ethan stepped out barefoot, holding a beer in one hand and a crumpled envelope in the other. His shoulders sagged like a man already halfway buried. When he saw me, he froze. Then, unbelievably, he smiled. "Come to admire your handiwork," he called out. His voice echoed across the street. I stepped out of my truck. "Came to see if you'd finally learned something." He laughed, bitter and sharp. "Oh, I've learned plenty. Like how a man can lose everything and still keep breathing. That's cruel, you know. You should have just finished it." I crossed the street slowly. "You finished it yourself, when you opened that safe." He looked down at the envelope in his hand. "You want to hear something funny? I thought I was helping us. Hannah kept worrying about money, about the baby we'd never afford. I thought, if I could just stop," I said. "Don't insult me with good intentions." He stared at me, rain starting to dot his shirt. "You think this makes you righteous?" "No," I said. "Just even." He took a shaky breath. You know what's left of me now. Frank, a half-empty house and a wife who won't look at me. You didn't just take my money. You took her belief that I could be better. That belief died when you betrayed her too," I said. He gave a hollow laugh. "You sound like God handing down judgment. But you're not God. You're just an old man too afraid to admit he's broken." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm broken clean. You're broken rotten." He looked at me for a long time. Then he stepped closer, close enough for me to smell the stale beer and desperation. His voice dropped low. "You know what the funny part is? I don't even hate you anymore. I envy you." That stopped me. "Because you still believe you're right," he said. "I wish I had that kind of faith left in anything." He handed me the envelope. I didn't take it. "Your confession?" I asked. He smiled, small, strange. Something like that. Then he turned and walked back inside. The door shut quietly behind him. I stood there until the streetlights came on, rain dripping down the brim of my hat. When I finally opened the envelope, there was a single folded page inside. "Frank, you were right. I took it. Every dollar. I thought I could double it. Maybe even make you proud. I was wrong. I destroyed everything instead. I don't have anything left to pay you with. But at least you'll have this truth. Maybe it's worth something to you. Tell Hannah I'm sorry. Ethan." The ink bled where the rain hit it. I folded the paper, slipped it into my jacket, and walked back to the truck. The next morning, Marcus called. His voice was quiet. "Frank, you should sit down." "What happened?" "It's Ethan. Police found his car off the I-10 last night. Single vehicle collision. No skid marks. He went through the guardrail." The words landed like stones, dropping into water, deep, slow and final. "Is he gone?" Marcus said. Silence stretched. The sound of my clock ticking filled the space between us. "I didn't want this," I said finally. "I believe you," Marcus said. "But the road between justice and vengeance doesn't have many exits." The funeral was small. A handful of coworkers, a pastor who didn't know him. Hannah, pale and silent, one hand resting on her stomach. I stood at the edge of the cemetery, raincoat, clinging to me like guilt. When the pastor asked if anyone wanted to say a few words, no one moved. Then Hannah turned. "Dad," she whispered. I shook my head. "I've said enough for one lifetime." Her eyes filled, but she nodded. When the service ended, she placed a small bouquet on the coffin, yellow lilies, Ethan's favorite apparently. Then she looked at me one last time. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive you," she said, "but I think I understand you now." I nodded. "That's more than I deserve." She turned and walked away. That night I sat in my study, the confession letter open on the desk, beside Evelyn's photo. "You see," I said to her. He admitted it. I wasn't crazy. But her smile in the photo didn't look proud. It looked tired. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the whisper of wind through the vents. For the first time in months, the ledger stayed closed. I didn't write anything down. No timelines, no phases, no victory, just silence. Outside, the desert sky was clear again. No rain, no thunder, just the stars, cold, distant, and indifferent. I leaned back in my chair and whispered into the quiet. Justice has a price. I just didn't know it was my daughter's forgiveness. And for the first time since this began, I didn't feel right. I just felt old. 2 months after the funeral, the house finally sold. Market softened, but I still cleared close to $300,000 after costs. Marcus handled the paperwork. He didn't congratulate me this time, just slid the check across the desk like it was a condolence card. You can transfer it to your account, he said. I didn't. That night, I drove out past the city lights, into the quiet places where the desert stretches forever, the kind of silence that either forgives or condemns you, depending on what you bring into it. The air smelled of dust and creosote, stars scattered sharp and bright. I parked on a rise, overlooking the highway, and just sat there, engine off, letting the dark breathe around me. In the passenger seat, I had the folder, everything from the beginning. The theft report, the lien certificate to the IRS form, Ethan's confession. My handwriting filling pages with careful precision, every decision documented, like an accountant balancing God's ledger. I took out the confession letter, the ink blurred from rain. His last words, "Tell Hannah I'm sorry." I folded it once more, then held it to the flame of my lighter. The paper curled, caught, and turned to ash. The smoke drifted out the window and vanished into the black sky. Hannah called the next morning. Her voice was quieter now, softer, like something inside her had finally cracked open and let the light in. "Dad," she said, "it's a boy." For a moment I couldn't speak. "When last night?" "Early." She hesitated. "I named him Elias, after her mother's father. Not after me." That felt right. "Is he healthy?" "He's perfect." A pause. "Do you want to meet him?" The question sat between us like fragile glass. I almost said no. Maybe I didn't deserve to. But Evelyn's voice, the one I still heard in my head, sometimes whispered the only answer that made sense. "Yes," I said. "I'd like that." The hospital was small, soft lighting, lavender walls, the faint antiseptic smell of new beginnings. Hannah was pale but smiling when I walked in. The baby was swaddled in blue, sleeping soundly in her arms. She looked up when she saw me, cautious but not cold. "He's quiet," I said. "He gets that from you," she said with a tired smile. I stood there for a while, just watching. Then she nodded toward the chair. "You can hold him." My hands shook as I reached out, not from age, but from something deeper. When his tiny weight settled against my arm, the world went still. He smelled like milk and warmth, and something impossibly pure. For the first time in months, I felt my chest unclench. "He doesn't know any of it," I whispered. "The lies, the anger, the mess we made." "No," she said. "He just knows he's loved." I looked up at her, eyes burning. "Can we start over?" She studied me for a long time, then nodded. "We can try." That was enough. Later she drove home. The house felt different now, emptier but not lonely. I walked into the study, opened the desk drawer, and took out the operation ledger. Every page was filled, neat columns of decisions and consequences, a record of how far a man could go when he stopped believing in forgiveness. I tore out the first page, then the next, and the next. The sound was soft but final. When I was done, the desk was covered in shreds of paper. I swept them into a pile, lit the edge, and watched them burn in the metal wastebasket. The smoke curled up like incense, thin and gray. "Evelyn," I said quietly, "I hope you're proud of me for stopping before there was nothing left." For a long time, I just sat there, the last glow fading to embers. It's been 6 months since then. Hannah and the baby visit every Sunday. She still doesn't talk much about Ethan, and I don't ask. Some ghosts are better left in their corners. Sometimes when the boy falls asleep in my arms, I see the faintest trace of Ethan in his face, the jawline, the shape of his brow, and something in me softens. I'll never forgive what his father did. But maybe that doesn't matter anymore. Maybe forgiveness isn't for the dead. Maybe it's for those who have to live with what they've done. I tell him stories sometimes about his grandmother, about fishing trips and desert storms. I don't mention money or revenge or safes or lies, just the quiet truth that life can hurt you and still give you something beautiful afterward. Last Sunday when Hannah was leaving, she stopped at the door. "You know," she said, "I think Mom would have liked seeing you with him." I smiled. "Maybe she does." She nodded. "You seem lighter." "I am," I said. Took me a while to learn that winning doesn't mean peace. She kissed my cheek and left. I stood there for a while, sunlight spilling across the living room, the faint laughter of my grandson still echoing in my ears. The ledger was gone. The house was quiet. And for the first time since that February morning, I didn't feel like a man haunted by what he'd lost. I felt like one forgiven by what he'd chosen to keep. You know, I used to think revenge would feel like victory, that once I got even, I'd sleep better. But the truth is, it doesn't bring peace. It just stops the bleeding long enough for you to see the scars. I didn't win anything. I just made sure the people who hurt me finally understood what loss tastes like. And somehow, that was enough. Now when I sit on my porch, watching the sun go down, I don't think about the money anymore. I think about dignity, about standing up when the world tries to break you, and walking away without losing the kind of man you still want to be. So tell me in the comments, was I right to do what I did? Or did I go too far? Either way, this was my justice. Quiet, cold, and exactly what they earned.